Pitcher, Oklahoma, modern-day ghost town. A decade ago, the federal government declared the area a hazard. They bought out every willing resident, closed the schools, dismissed the mayor, and dissolved the charter. Pitcher and a few other tiny towns lie within the border of the Tar Creek Superfund site, one of just a handful of places on Earth considered uninhabitable. The water runs red with poisonous lead. The chat piles loom, man-made mountains of toxic bedrock. And then there's the ground at the surface, at risk of collapsing into cavernous mine structures below.
Largest Superfund site in Oklahoma.
40 square miles devastated by aggressive digging a half-century ago. Excavation fueled 2 world wars with enough lead and zinc to make half the bullets fired by American troops. The mines were abandoned in the 60s. They filled with water, which now overflows its deadly cocktail at the surface.
All that water is coming into the mine, but it's got nowhere to go down the mine because the mine workings has worked its way up to ground surface, and so it's just gushing out like geysers.
The EPA has dumped hundreds of millions of federal dollars into the cleanup here, which started in the 80s. Today, they are working with the Quapaw tribe. No end in sight. This is called chat. It's mining waste, and I'm standing on a pile of chat that's about 2.5 million tons. It's not the only one right on the edge of the town of Pitcher. There are nearly a dozen of them, and when you look at the number of piles of chat, you will understand why Superfund sites take decades to clean up. There's so much of it. Right now, there are plans to dismantle the piles on the edge, the distal areas threatening communities downstream. The tribe doesn't expect to get to the core for 30 more years.
Just at the current burn rate that we have, kind of what we're getting in grants money-wise and tonnage, how quickly we go through that money, I mean, they're still thinking 30 plus years.
The problem with the piles is they are poisonous to the development of young children.
The primary concern with this material is the lead that's in it.
The kids who grew up here in the Tri-State Mining District were found to have learning disabilities, respiratory infections, and chronic illness.
This site, in the first list that was scored, was the highest ranking Superfund site.
Pollution busted this mine town in a big way. Lead, iron, zinc, and cadmium are the culprits. Once Superfund cleanup started, environmentalists then saw how truly deadly the area was. In the early 2000s, large areas of Pitcher started caving in.
And so we've had numerous collapses around some of those areas, especially around the old mine shafts.
What do?
You keep people out. Basically, the ground sinks. Maybe all at once, maybe slowly. Hopefully slowly.
Tar Creek is the biggest Superfund site in Oklahoma by far, but it's not the only one. In fact, the Department of Environmental Quality lists 16 Superfund sites around Oklahoma. There's several up by Tulsa, one in Bartlesville, abandoned refineries in Payne County, Caddo County, and Carter County, a landfill in McLean, and 7 more Superfund sites in and around downtown Oklahoma City. Possibly the most surprising? Tinker Air Force Base. Yes, there is a Superfund cleanup project in an old aircraft maintenance building not too far from the barracks on the base.
Tinker used to manage its waste much differently than it does now. And as a result, there is groundwater contamination that the base is continuing to work on.
The good news is most of our Superfund sites are cleaned up. In fact, 7 sites have already been deleted from the national priorities list. Only 4 Oklahoma sites are active with ongoing cleanup, with a 5th in the works.
But unfortunately, in our entire field of environmental health, we have historically learned through the School of Hard Knocks. We create a problem for ourselves, and then we have to figure out how to manage it.
Superfund is everywhere, even in Oklahoma.
Some environmental groups are concerned cleanup efforts will stall as the possibility of federal EPA funding cuts loom. So far, EPA Administrator Scott Pruitt has been supportive of the program, even after the White House recommended drastic cuts.
We have some pretty serious concerns that these sites are actually going to get the attention they need.
Pollution by ignorance or by malice is dangerous to human health. When the responsible party is no longer around, Superfund is our last-ditch effort. Public works to fix what no one else would.
And it very vividly demonstrated that it's far cheaper to do it right the first time than to clean up historical mess.
Several Oklahoma Superfund sites found their way to the priority list after citizens complained. If you suspect pollution in your area, call DEQ. Allie Meyer, Oklahoma's News 4.